never really was any good at gambling. I liked cards. I liked blackjack. I never cared for roulette. Never really got the hang of the slot machines. I didn't think they were fair. But sit at the table, single deck, blackjack. To me, that made the most sense odds wise. And some people should not gamble. I had a friend that was one of those. He was the worst gambler. I felt embarrassed for him and for the people who had to deal with him. He would lose a hand and he would throw his hands up and just cussing. Unbelievable, right? And so, yeah, I didn't really ever sit next to him. It was just too painful to watch. And he never made any. I don't think he ever made any money. He would kind of float along, trying to get it all, chasing that last dollar with another one. Never got it. I think that's kind of like a drug. Some people they got the gene, and they're just chasing the next high, right? But yeah, we went up for a couple days to Tahoe, and I decided to stay. He took his car. I had a cab over to save money on the hotels, not cheap in Tahoe. But so he split. He either ran out of money or just got so frustrated he couldn't take it anymore. And I had resigned myself to stay the rest of the day and drive home in the morning. And I had fortunately thought ahead just in case, filled up my gas tank, and I got some extra food just in case, right? And I'm down to my last $20 or $23, something like that. And I wanted to have at least $10 in my pocket, so I knew I had $13 left to spend. And so I went over to the blackjack table and nothing. $13, one hand. Bye, Tahoe. Right? And I'm walking out, and I'm looking on the floor, and I saw a silver dollar laying on the floor, and I thought, oh. Looked around, nobody saw it, so I walked over to it, picked it up, and I'm looking around at the slot machines, and I'm thinking, okay, this is something you don't, I'm on my way out. What do I got to lose? Here's a here's a tip. Always play the limit. If you're playing a three, coin machine, and you have 3 coins, play the limit. I had one silver dollar, and this machine took 3 silver dollars, which was their limit, and it hit. I think it hit for like 30. It was either $32 or $3,300, I think. And it just rang and rang and rang and rang. And people were looking over going, wow. And I was just kind of like shocked. I don't believe it. I'm looking at it. And there's these 3 diamonds, bing, bing, bing. And, oh yeah, after a while of it ringing, it drawing attention to itself, getting people excited. So they put more money in their machines going, yeah, I'm next, right? I'm next. And the cashier came over, looked everything over, gave me a slip. He says, come on. He reset the machine. And so I don't think anybody wanted to play that machine after that because, it was probably empty, which I'm sure that's not how it works. But walked me over to the cashier's cage and hundreds. And I just went, wow. I hadn't seen that much money in one place. I'm not even sure if I had ever seen that much money in one place at one time that belonged to me. So I was happy about that. I put one more dollar in on the way out, and nothing, and I was gone. Sayonara. That's about the best at gambling that I ever got, was learning when to go. But I winded up working, thanks to my brother, thanks JD, for setting me up and saying, hey, you need to come and, check out Reno. It's nice here. It's like, oh. So I did. And I got a job. I was 20 years old, got a job at a casino over on Virginia by the courthouse. And bar backing. I was the guy that brought all the beer and all the liquor, and brought the ice and chopped up all the the lemons and limes and made sure everything was fully stocked for the bartenders. And I did that for about a year, and then I turned 21, and they said, "You turn 21, you can tend bar." And I went, "Oh, yeah, that's a huge leap in payment because being a bartender, that means you get to keep the tips, right?" And wasn't a lot of action on my shift. I got the graveyard shift. That's kind of what happens when you're a new bartender, is you get the best hours. And with the exception of maybe once or twice a week when all these buses would come down from Canada and pour out hundreds of very thirsty Canadians. Who had free the drink coupons that they handed them were like for buy two get one, or one for free or something. And they'd been sitting on the bus for a while, and they were thirsty. And Canadians like to drink, from what I understand also. So yeah, it was a busy a couple of hours. There was a rush, like lunch rush, breakfast rush, midnight rush. And that would clear out, and there would be nothing, dead. Talk about a dead bar. It was dead. So there's not much to do. And I was told, just keep things clean up and organize, make sure you got stock up, for the next bartender that's coming in that can have, their fruit, vegetables chopped up and plenty of ice and all stocked up. And one day this guy tipped me, bounced a quarter, and I went to catch it, and I missed, and it kind of rolled underneath the bar. And I thought, oh, shit. So I'm looking, I got underneath there, and I'm looking, and I see it laying down in there, but there was so much junk in front. Underneath the bar was probably this space of about 3 feet tall, and it was like, the bar was probably 30 feet long, and it had like 20 of these machines. So you could put your silver dollars in there and play poker while you drink. Brilliant. Wish I'd have thought of it. Wish I had one at home. That would be fun. That would be fun to kill time. Of course, you could always just take your money out and start over. But so I moved a few things aside and reached in there, grabbed it, and it was just filthy back there. I mean, it had been years since anybody cleaned it underneath there. And so I decided to, start cleaning it. And about that time, the bar manager came by, and he says, you're doing a great job, Scott. Keep it up, and encouraging me to, keep things nice and clean. I told him, I said, I'm going to clean out this whole area underneath this bar, and he was just thrilled. There's hot water and soap on some of the stainless steel stuff that hadn't been moved and caked up with who knows what. And I told him, I said, hey, I got a tip, and it rolled underneath there, and I said, he says, oh yeah, whatever you find underneath there, just, it's just a tip. I said, well, there might be other dollars under there. He goes, oh yeah, just don't worry about it. Just put it in your tip jar. Keep it. And so I started clearing, space out. And sure enough, I found at least in that first 4-foot section, I found at least $5 in silver dollars. And one of them was the casino chip. It wasn't a silver dollar. It was a chip for $1, which they still made at that time. I don't even know if it's efficient anymore to even bother with the dollars, but hey, they add up, right? And he was walking away. I said, hey, there's 4 or 5 more of them underneath there. And he says, just keep it, Scott. Honestly, you're doing a great job. Keep it clean. So yeah, I took all the guilt away from thinking I was thieving the place, which I wasn't, because I had permission. But so I'm clearing this stuff out, and I'm taking, hot water, and I'm taking the brush and the rags and cleaning shit and putting it back. And I noticed that of all of these 20 machines, or whatever it was, I think it was 20 dollar machines, on the backside of the bar, underneath the bar, when they installed these things, there's a trap door. It was like a an access. I don't know if it was to clean debris, that would eventually just clog the thing up, or they to do repairs or whatever it was. But this was underneath the change basket, and apparently, if you drop too many coins in too fast, one of them will bounce off to the side in this really tiny gap and fall to the very bottom, which nobody had access to, unless you were behind the bar. The technicians would come and lift the machine up and pull the box and, dump the tray of all the money, all the treasure into a bucket, which made a lot of noise, but it was fun to watch. So nobody noticed this change that had fallen in the very bottom of this machine, and I think the first machine had something like $30 in it. And what a find. And like I said, it was under the bar, and technically I was cleaning it, and nobody ever counted it. Nobody knew it was missing. It wasn't anyone's money. Finders keepers. And I had permission. Remember. So yeah, that first machine was like $30, and oh yeah, I spent the next 2 or 3 nights on my shift cleaning sections out, and I don't think any of those machines yielded less than $20. It starts stacking up. Let's see, 20 by 20s. It was pretty close to $200 or better, and boy, that was a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of stories, like I say, working in casinos, but like I say, some you can tell and some you can't tell, right? But I did still, at that time even, I was enjoying playing cards, and I, of course, never gamble in the place that you work, but those were some good times. But, when it comes to opportunities, opportunities that present themselves, some people go a little bit further and take things that don't belong to them, or they don't have permission for, or they don't have any right to. I, years later, had left my truck open, passenger side, because I'd let off a friend of mine, and I forgot to lock the door, and I pulled into my favorite pizza joint. It was just about closing time, but I had called ahead, and I had ordered a pizza to go, and it was about 11 o'clock at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock. And came out to my truck with my nice hot pizza, and I'm looking forward to getting home. It was a Friday night. I think it was like the 23rd or 4th of December, just before Christmas. And I had started the truck and took off, and I heard this jingling like broken glass, and I thought, what in the hell? I pull over, I flip my dome light on, and I look behind my seat in a box that I had glasses, wine glasses that I was going to give out to a friend of mine for Christmas. I was going to take them home, wrap them, and there were some broken ones, and I couldn't figure out how in the heck they got broken, but I started looking around, and there were other things missing. I had a nice Ryobi screw gun, which I missed very much, especially in my line of work. I had to get another one the next day. I had opened my box, in between the seats, and there was a whole handfuls of quarters. Just when you get change, you throw them in there, and for just in case. And I noticed my coat, my good, rugged, beautiful Carhartt coat was gone. Apparently, this guy had taken as much as he could find and stuffed them into pockets of this coat, which had great big pockets. So he loaded a lot of shit in there. And I mean, over the next couple of weeks, I was finding out that I was missing things that just made me sick. And probably a week after that, at a 7-Eleven in town there, and this guy rode by. He was probably 40 years old. He rode by and on a bicycle, and he was wearing my coat. And I wanted that coat back, and I wanted to confront this guy. Not sure how that would have went, but I was not thinking about, being fair. So I hopped in my truck and I drove about 2 blocks up and turned around and parked, and I saw him coming toward me. And I got out of the truck and I went to, I don't know, I wasn't going to grab him or anything, but I said, "Hey, you son of a bitch, that's my coat. And you stole it out of my truck. And where's all my other shit that you took?" And he just nearly froze, but he somehow found the energy to pedal faster than any human should be able to pedal in the opposite direction. And I couldn't keep up with him. I talked to the police department. They said, "Well, if you threaten him, that's assault. If you touch him on the chest with your finger, that's battery. He could sue you." Remarkable how the laws favor crime these days. I mean, this whole thing of $900 and it's okay, to take it from. Don't even get me started. Anyways, probably 3 or 4 days later, I'm driving home and I see a different person wearing this coat. And I knew it was my coat because it had a big patch on the lapel that had the lumber yard, which was my sponsor at that time. And it was a Carhartt. It was a beautiful shade of brown, nice black thick collar. And I'm guessing he was homeless. They were standing in line at a food bank. And he was standing next to this gal. And I parked my truck, got out of the truck, went across the street. I said, "Hey, where'd you get that coat?" And I told him, that was stolen out of my truck, removed without my permission. And he says, "Oh, no, some guy gave it to me, and, this and that." And she goes, "Give it back to him, give him his coat back." And I looked at the coat. It was sad. It was... There was like burp up. I don't know what else it could be. And shit hanging out of the pockets. And, it was nasty. And I said, "Look, just keep the coat. Merry Christmas," right? And he said, "Oh, gee, thanks." He didn't know the story of it, really. And I had to say goodbye to my good friend, the Carhartt, which I went out and replaced almost immediately, just out of grief and anger. But thing is, you gotta, think about locking your car. I guess if it was locked and he really wanted in and saw something sitting there, he could. But the lights were out. There was no street lamps. It was dark. But if the door hadn't been open, he probably would have just checked the door and walked on by, unless he saw something in there he wanted or whatever, and then he would have broke the windows. So it's just one of those things, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Nothing's really safe. Even your house, you think about it, you got windows. If you're not home and you don't have a dog, what good or what, there's no security. You have no security. Camera's nice. You can catch, people doing it. But, as I said, people, that robbed this store out where I'm at now, they were on camera. They don't care. It's just... So I guess being conscientious, keeping some things out of sight, maybe close your drapes during the day so you just kind of look in, because people they walk by, and if they've checked your place and they know you're at work and you're remote, they'll walk by, or even if they're in a neighborhood where they can walk by and kind of check. But dogs are the best. Anyways, I'll leave it there and just kind of shake my head. You always wonder about if karma's one of those kinds of things that strike back, and how many times you have to, is there good karma and bad karma? Can you get both at the same time? You always wonder whether these people are going to get their due, just diligence or justice, whatever. And you hope they do. But I don't know. I can understand if somebody's hungry, I can understand that, because I know people get desperate when they're hungry, and if you're in like a store and you take a piece of food or something, I get that. But you don't go in and fill up garbage bags full of, tobacco and alcohol and, or open somebody's vehicle and climb in and just sort through it. It just makes me angry. I hope I never catch anybody on this property doing anything like that. Um, that would demand a great deal of restraint. I don't know. Anyways, lock your car doors, right? Get a dog.